Fire Emblem Path of Radiance and Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn were some of the better Fire Emblem games of the pre-awakening era of Fire Emblem, but even though they were pretty good gameplay-wise, their less than stellar sales numbers brought the series to its knees. Let's waste no time and jump right into the reasons why both of Ike's games didn't sell too well. One of them was most likely because of the first game's poor timing in terms of its release window, as the GameCube was nearing the end of its lifespan by the time Path of Radiance was released. It also didn't help that the Wii, the GameCube's successor, was released about a little more than a year later, and with that would come the release of Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, the sequel to Path of Radiance. It should also be known that advertisement for the game was scarce on TV, and the internet was still developing advertisement platforms like Facebook and YouTube. Keep in mind that this was in the mid-2000s, by the way. Moving on to Radiant Dawn, it seemed clear to me that the game was, for one, overshadowed by other big games that came out at the time, like Super Mario Galaxy. It also didn't help that, while somewhat popular, Fire Emblem was still sort of niche at the time, and didn't have that massive following that it would later gain with Awakening. There was also the issue that Radiant Dawn, while being a sequel to Path of Radiance, did not communicate the fact that it was a sequel very well, leading to some people picking it up and being confused due to missing context for some story events. Transitioning to story, it also seems to me like Radiant Dawn's story was all over the place, and instead of focusing on just Ike like they did with Path of Radiance, the developers wanted to expand the scope of the story a bit more. And that's okay, but I feel like they could have fleshed out Ike's character a little more earlier in the story, and still managed to expand upon the lore that Path of Radiance had to offer. Maybe instead of whole chapters dedicated to different lords in Radiant Dawn, they could have instead played a couple maps throughout the story dedicated to just them and their development. This way, the other characters like Soth, Micaiah, Olincia, and many more can still get sufficient character development while still allowing for the story to be centered around Ike and his Grail mercenaries. This would keep the story going at a brisk pace, while still allowing for the expansion of Tellius lore. Now that I've covered some of the struggles that Ike's games had, marketing and story aside, let's talk about why I feel these two Fire Emblem games deserve a remake. In my opinion, these games deserve a remake in the first place because of just how popular Ike was in the US. Despite his lack of popularity in his main series games, Ike was very popular when he debuted in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and has made Smash Bros. His home ever since. It would only make sense for him to get remakes for his games, to pay homage to all the time he spent in Smash representing Fire Emblem. With Smash's influence out of the way, let's move on to the look and feel with the graphics of the remakes. Graphically, I feel like instead of just upscaling everything, they should instead do it by hand. Now, I realize that what I just said would be difficult and time-consuming to pull off, but if done correctly, it could pay off quite well, giving the remakes that slick and clean Fire Emblem Three Houses look. I mean, that's basically what they did for Shadows of Valentia with Alm, so why can't they do it with Ike's games on the Switch, which has more powerful hardware than the 3DS? This would also be done to avoid any rough patches of graphics if they did just decide to upgrade the GameCube and Wii graphics, and it would save future headaches with development time in terms of graphical glitch fixing. Gameplay-wise, the base camp while prepping in between maps can be given the Three Houses treatment, with side quests throughout the game with your units, and updating dialogues and support conversations can also be sprinkled throughout the game. This revamp of the base camp will breathe new life into it and make the time spent in between maps not just staring at a menu. This change will also give the game a lot more personality that I feel like some of the characters in these two games lacked originally. Moving on, I personally liked the idea of the weapon triangle, and I think it should make a return for Ike's games at least. It could give old fans a return to form, while giving the new fans from Three Houses a look into Fire Emblem's recent past. I also think that giant monsters, also introduced in Three Houses, should make their way into this remake as well. It would add even more strategy and thought for just that little extra bit of gameplay depth. As for the voice acting, they could get some of the voice actors from Fire Emblem Heroes to reprise their roles, and to really make these games shine and just overflow with personality, as I've heard many a complaint from people that the original voice acting was, I think I want to say, stale? Yeah, that's probably the right word that I'm looking for. Here's an example as to what I mean.
Father, what's going on? Where are you? Father!
Mike! Stay back!
Here's the slate.
What are you doing?
I've been waiting for this for a long time. I would prefer it if you use your proper weapon, so that I might see you at your full strength. General Gawain, rider of Gain. Do you want to die? Is that all there is? No challenge? No resistance?
Don't leave. Don't leave me! Father!
I think that, with today's improved sound technology and mixing techniques, and with the recasting here and there, a lot of the issues with some of the voice acting would be null and void. I personally have no issues with the Black Knight's voice actor in Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, but I think that his Fire Emblem Heroes voice actor does a great job. Combine that with Greg Chun, who has voice acted Ike for both Fire Emblem Heroes and Smash Ultimate, who also does a great job with Ike, and who also is improving with the character, and you've got yourself a real showstopper. I'd really love to see how he portrays Ike in a remake of these two games. Yeah, sorry Jason, I know that you've voiced Ike ever since Path of Radiance in 2005, and up to Fire Emblem Fates in 2017, but I'd like to see Greg's take on Ike in a mainline title. I just thought it would be fair for Greg, seeing how he hasn't had the opportunity to voice Ike in a main series title yet. No hard feelings though. For the music, I actually wouldn't be disappointed if they didn't make orchestral remasters of the soundtrack, because, in my opinion, what was already there was just fantastic. Although if they did do that, it would be a nice touch. I loved the little tunes that would play when the turns changed. Lastly, I do think that they should make both the remakes of Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn into a dual cartridge, or at least bundle the games into one Switch games case, so that way people can get the whole Tellius story without having to pay for a game twice, and potentially forgetting all of the details. In conclusion, I believe that both Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn should get remakes because they were not given their proper time to shine, and were instead overshadowed by bigger games for the Wii at the time, like Super Mario Galaxy. When or if these games get remade, it will allow for a second chance to really show how great Ike's games can be, and I would love that, as Ike is one of, if not my favorite Fire Emblem lords in the entire series. I sincerely hoped that you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and set that notification bell to all to stay up to date on all my latest uploads. And while you're at it, why not join my Discord server in the description below? I think you'll like it. We're a growing community and I'd love to have you on board. With that being said, I hope you have a great day and I'll see you all next time, everybody.